Well, let's go to the markets this Thursday, and the man with the numbers is Adam Dawes from Shaw and Partners. Dawsy, good to go and see you this morning. Hope you're enjoying the festive season. The ACCC's been pretty busy. Lots of green lights going on.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Scotty, that all of a sudden we're coming into the end of Christmas and then, the end of the year, and then the ACCC potentially just getting all these deals through before they all have to go on holidays as well. So, yeah, absolutely. ACCC has given the green light for a couple of transactions. One is the, which you just mentioned, the Sydney Airport one that has been going through. That's going to go through at $8.75. One of the interesting things about that, though, is that UniSuper is going to transfer its 15% that it owns in Sydney Airports into the new consortium. So they're going to continue to hold that one. I think it's a fantastic asset. A lot of my clients have this one, and it's done very, very well. But also, we've certainly seen the other one, which is, I think, is an interesting one as well, but Cleanaway, with their proposed acquisition of the Suez post-collection waste assets in Sydney. Now, this one is a big one for Cleanaway, and a lot of share traders or holders of Cleanaway should definitely hold their stock. But this one is actually looking pretty good because this is a big business, or it's a big asset for these guys to get. They have undertaken to divest some of those assets, so the ACCC is going to be separately looking at a couple of the other stakes or positions in the portfolio, especially the ones in South Australia and Western Australia as well. But this is a really big acquisition for this one. There has been a bit of a talk about some private equity circulating around Cleanaway as well. So this is going to be an interesting one going forward, and I really like the story as well. Since we did have Bingo, that got taken out. Now Cleanaway is the only one of those assets in the market that, we can get access to that recycling side of things. It's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out today.
And Adam, also the Seven West Media acquisition of Prime Media Group was on their list.
Yeah, look, it was too. I mean, it's a bit of a cleaner house, isn't it? So, yeah, Seven West looking to take over Prime. This one's an interesting one. The stock Prime Media is traded at around about sort of 43 cents. But this is going to be a mixture of a dividend and a capital return equaling around about $131 million. So for all those Prime PRT shareholders, that's obviously a good it's a good outcome for them going forward. And I certainly think that over time, Seven West Media is going to continue with that push into that regional side of things and just consolidate or mop up some of those smaller players. But yeah, look, a good announcement for PRT, and ACCC being very, very busy today on the open.
Adam, how do you feel about the broader media sector? It's been a tough couple of decades, it's got to be said, but there seems to be a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. How do you view the sector at the moment?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because, you could say it's a bit of a reopening trade with a lot of the advertising coming back and people, potentially, wanting to sort of get their businesses and that marketing spend going forward. But then you offset that with a lot of demand. So, the Netflix of the world or even the Stans of the world, those kinds of businesses where, potentially media, you don't need to sit down and watch advertising. You can just basically play it when you want. So, look, if we're looking to be pushed into any kind of media stocks, you're definitely looking for those ones that have that streaming capability. Now, they all do now, sort of 7 and 9. And I probably think 7 is probably the better of the two. So Seven West Media would be one that I'd look at, only because they do have a fair bit of other content that they can use as well. So, yeah, you got to look at those streaming services. You got to look at the business and obviously marketing. But I'd be careful with the sort of the outdoor media guys and those kinds of things. I think I'd be really careful with those. They're usually the first one of the budget to get chopped when things get bad. And, we're certainly not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. So I think, yeah, you go for one of those bigger players, and Seven West would probably be my pick in that sector.
Adam, M&A has been just such a big thematic of 2021. Have we seen the peak, or these green lights, do you think that it's led the way to more?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because the biggest one that's still bankers are still looking at is the CSL potential acquisition of that Swiss drug maker or Swiss, and I forget the name. Please excuse me. Somebody will correct me sooner or later. But that's a $10 billion acquisition, and that's pretty big going into Christmas. Bank of America is probably the only sort of big bank that'll be able to sort of potentially sit behind that. But CSL will potentially need to raise about $4 billion in our market. And it'll be debt and equity. But that equity side of things, $4 billion, that's put a bit of a cap on CSL share price going forward. But I think it's a kidney regenerative business and another drug that they're doing. That certainly does fit in the wheelhouse of CSL. But that's probably going to be the largest one. And if they need to do that, they'll probably need to do that in the next 2 weeks or so. I don't know if that's going to get off, and you probably might need to wait a little bit longer for that one. That's going to put a bit of a lid on the share price as the market is realising that they're going to need to raise money, potentially at probably a steep discount where it's sort of trading around $300. Potentially you might need to do that at 280, 285. So that's going to be an interesting one. And look, so yes, I think there's more mergers and acquisitions to come. It always happens when the market is potentially undervalued, and we have certainly seen some of those stocks that are undervalued at the moment. The one I'm keeping my fingers crossed is Zip. Potentially there might be a takeover there, but we'll leave that scuttlebutt alone.
Vifor Pharma is the name we're looking for as well there, Dawsey. Look, what's the broad expectation for the session today? Obviously, we're seeing volumes start to go and slow down a little bit. Any expectations?
Look, yeah, the futures were down about 14 when I left the desk. So, I think it's going to be a fairly subdued day. We've had a cracker of a couple of days where this market's really rallied hard and continued. So, look, I expect a little bit of consolidation today. Look, it'd be good to see some of those miners start to do some heavy lifting as well. And certainly BHP, there's a lot of talk about the short that's on BHP at the moment. 7.8% of the stock is shorted at the moment. And I think you've got to be a little bit careful. But once that unification trade finishes in January, that short is going to disappear. So that is a really big impetus for the stock to go higher as well. So, yeah, look, I think we're going to have a fairly subdued day. Coming into Friday, hopefully we can still maintain these gains. And I think that will be the key going for us going into the weekend.